In today's episode, we're going to ask the question, can Pilates really give you longer, leaner muscles? Stick around and find out. Hey, Chloe.
Hi, Raph. How you going?
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
I feel like I haven't seen you for ages.
It does feel like a long time, which is weird. I feel like we used to see each other all the time.
Because you were on Holes last week or something. What did I?
No, last week I was here.
Last week we talked with Laura.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it feels like I haven't seen you for ages.
2 weeks. Then the prior 2 weeks I was on holidays.
Well, it's good to see you anyway.
Yes, you too. It's a nice. It's not too cold, and it's a nice day, and we've got a spicy topic coming up, which I'm excited about. It's What are we going to talk about?
Can Pilates make your muscles longer and leaner?
Wow, I sure hope so. Isn't that what all the Look, I don't know, I'm sure so many of our listeners can put their hands up and go, at one point they got suckered into Pilates.
That's why I signed up.
For that claim. And I absolutely did. So back in the day, apart from the fact I was kind of sold that Pilates would alleviate my back pain, which it did. And I was speaking about this last night because it was the Fearless Movement lecture for our March crew. And we were speaking about, well, for a lot of us, Pilates did alleviate our pain, okay? But that's because I fell in love with doing Pilates. That's because I did it consistently. That's because it helped get me stronger, helped, get my range of movement back. It helped getting me back into moving into flexion, which was what I was fearful of moving into, and all of these things, okay?
And because you expected it to.
And because I expected it to help. And, though if I expected going swimming or going for a walk or going for a run would do the same thing, and I loved doing it, guess what? It probably would as well. So, and we talked about that. So being mindful of narrative. But I also distinctly remember the advertising and all the hype, particularly around, I'm thinking like feet in straps. That one was guaranteed to make your legs longer. And hey, spoiler alert, and this won't come as a spoiler alert for anyone who knows me IRL in real life. I'm still short. My legs still look the same.
You know what? It's been one of the biggest weird things for me about this whole COVID, year and a half that we've had is, meeting people in real life and you're like, oh, you're like a foot taller than I thought you would be, or like
it's height, isn't it? It's height that always is always
because you only ever see people from the chest up, sort of.
You cannot tell online, and I've noticed it's funny. More people kind of now are saying, "Hey, I'm tall," or "Hey, I'm short," because maybe it's like going to impact, their settings on the reformer or their ability to do certain exercises, etc. And I've noticed now that's one of the main things. People will put their hand up to flag. So it's not so much now.
I'm pregnant.
Is there something that hurts this or that? Just letting I'm tall. So I might have some, or just letting I'm actually really short, and I've noticed myself too when demoing exercises and teach them for the first time, I usually need to say something about my stature in regards to what that means from a ability to do an exercise with, or equipment settings. So it's really interesting. So a lot of the time I'm like, guys, I am so of average height.
You know what? I was reading a book, and I was listening to a podcast actually the other day, and they were talking. This guy was an evolutionary biologist, and he was talking about he does research into human mating behavior. From an evolutionary perspective.
Yeah, right.
And so there's so much data on this now with the internet and Google searches and porn and Tinder and all of these things. We've got like so much digital footprint about our mating behavior that we didn't have like 20 years ago.
Interesting.
That researchers can tap into, this, not like individual people's data, but they can look at the aggregate of like how many times was this thing searched for or whatever.
As in, are you attracted to a certain person who looks a certain way.
Yeah, and so one of the things he was talking about on this show was, which is Sam Harris's podcast, actually, Making Sense, which is, I love it and highly recommend it if you're looking for a thought-provoking podcast.
You usually tell me the good
Yeah, so it's nothing to do with Pilates. It's nothing to do with movement.
What's it called? Making Sense.
It's called Making Sense with Sam Harris. He talks about a lot of stuff. He talks about current political events. He talks about AI. He talks about meditation. He's a neuroscientist. He talks about philosophy. He talks about a wide-ranging topics, has really interesting guests. Anyway, this one time last week, I think it was, he was talking with an evolutionary biologist who's studying human mating behavior from an evolutionary perspective. And he was talking about this data that he got from dating apps, so that, Tinder plus et cetera, whatever the other ones are.
Yeah.
And he said that basically, I can't remember how they figured this out, but they basically found that on average, men inflated their height by like 2 inches.
Oh, you didn't need to do a research project to tell me that.
So men would like round up. If you're 5'8", you round up to 6 feet.
Online data
or whatever,
here. The amount of times I've shown up to a date and someone is significantly shorter than what they put online. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, but women don't inflate their height. Women round their age down online. Yeah, and men round their income up as well. Like, they round themselves up from security guard to neurosurgeon or whatever it is.
So they make themselves taller
and more prestigious occupations.
Okay, and women try and make themselves a little younger.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Wow.
So, but it's just an interesting curiosity. But so when your female participants in class say, "Oh, I'm tall," they're probably telling the truth.
Yes.
Right? but if your male participants say that, you'd never know.
Oh my gosh. There you go. Wow. Okay. Oh, I'll have to listen to that episode. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I'll send you. I'll link to it in the show notes.
Yeah,
Sam Harris
I'd love
is
to.
awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
There's this new model actually that he does this interesting model with his podcast that he doesn't do ads, And if you're listening to this, you probably notice we don't do ads. I mean, sometimes we advertise our own wares, like come do our diploma with us or come do our free Q&A or whatever. But it's like we don't do, hey, come and buy this thing from some other person that they paid us money.
An ad by a sponsor sort of thing.
So we don't do that. We've made a decision not to do that because this isn't our source of income. We're not doing this for a living. Mm-hmm. We're doing this because these conversations need to be had and our mission is to help people become more health literate and science literate and fearless movers. So anyway, Sam Harris, that's what he does for a living, is he does a podcast. Right. That's his job.
Yeah, cool.
And so it's like, okay, it's great that you've got 1 million downloads and everyone loves you and everything, but it's like,
how do you make money out of it?
How do you pay the bills?
Yeah, fair enough.
And so your options are like get a sponsor and get paid to do it or ask people for money. Yeah. It's like, okay, if you listen to this, it's free, but it's not going to be free forever because I'm going to have to go and get a job. So anyway, he has this model where he basically just invites people to sponsor him on Patreon or whatever, and you don't have to. And if you don't want to, that's fine. It's free. But if you want to, you can. And so I sponsor him. I can't remember. It's a paltry amount, a few bucks a month.
Right.
That gives me a little warm inner glow of,
Yeah, and if he's got like that many listeners and everyone throws in a few dollars, well.
Yeah, and it's great because people who can't afford to don't have to.
Yeah.
And people who can afford to and want to, great. So anyway, cool. I like it. It's got no ads. He never tells me to buy anything. And I like his conversations.
Yeah, the ads can be, I must admit, the ads can be a little annoying in some of my favourite podcasts. It's like, and they go on for so long.
You know what?
But I understand, like I get it. I get the need, so I tolerate it. But it ruins my, ruins my enjoyment a little bit.
I've stopped listening to a couple of podcasts because of the ads.
Have you?
Yeah, like a couple of podcasts. So I listen to different podcasts at different times of day or for different reasons. And some podcasts I listen to sometimes to help me get to sleep.
Yeah.
And there some of them that have the ads are a lot louder than the podcast, and it's like you're lulling off to sleep. There's this beautiful sonorous voice of someone talking about British history or whatever, and then it's like, "Hey, come and blah 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 blah," and loud music and da da da, and you're like, So anyway,
did I tell you that because I think we've talked about sleep and whatnot before, and you said, you like listening to classical music, and there's a lot of literature around listening to classical music as you're going to sleep. My brother Luke, he highly recommends anything read by David Attenborough. So that's his. So he works out on the oil rigs and I don't know if it's actually, I probably shouldn't say oil rig because I don't know if it is an oil rig. I should really know what he does better, shouldn't I? He's a commercial diver and he also does a lot of rig climbing now. So it must be an oil rig and whatnot. And anyway, I guess the thing is he works really weird shifts. So he could work all through the night and then he's out on a barge on a ship, needs to get to sleep during the day. Imagine all the noises, etc. So he pops in David Attenborough read books and he said it's amazing because it lulls him to sleep, and then actually when he wakes up he just starts listening to it again, so it keeps you just really relaxed.
That's
so there
awesome.
You go. Red hot tip.
I can see that. I mean, David Attenborough's got a very very smooth voice, very calm.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So if you're having a tough time getting sleep, maybe try something read by David Attenborough. There you go. Okay, well, let's pivot to how I'm going to get these long, lean muscles that I've been trying to get, FYI, Raph, for the last decade. I'm hoping you're going to give me some sort of red hot tip today, or more than likely you may be about to, dash all that.
No, well, are you ready for a big surprise?
Well, I am, because you've been a bit excited about this. So I thought this topic might have been put to bed, but no, there's something exciting coming.
Pilates can give you longer, leaner muscles.
He did. I'm watching him right now, live time, everyone. He didn't do any air quotes, and I'm feeling really uncomfortable.
That's science. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So is this the elephant that's not an elephant?
Yeah.
Is this one of those
This is
episodes?
a reverse elephant.
This is a reverse elephant. Far out. You're about to blow some minds, including mine, and probably make some marketers go, ha. See, we weren't being jerks. It's true.
It is true.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's go, because I've got no idea what you're about to talk about.
Well, I mean, the premise in that the way that I sort of interpreted all of that marketing that I was exposed to as well, when I first started Pilates, was that Pilates will give me longer, leaner muscles compared to doing, say, weight training that would bulk me up, or compared to, doing CrossFit or, something like that. I'd get longer, leaner muscles as opposed to bulking. Is that the way that you understood it?
Yes. So I don't now, but back in the day, before I had any literacy around any of this, I probably would have thought that doing something like lunges or squats with weight, let's say at the gym, would have potentially given me, for want of a better word, bulkier thighs. And again, we don't want to use the word, I think we've talked about this before, we want to be mindful of bulky being seen as a negative connotation.
And I'm sorry, just anytime I ever say bulky in this context, there's air quotes around it.
Yeah. So I just want to be mindful of that too. But maybe instead of saying the word bulky, maybe the better word would have been sort of more muscular. Yeah. And I'm all for muscular these days for myself as an aesthetic, right? And as a feeling, and as a feeling of strength, and, all of that, I'm all about it. Back then, I probably would have been more about wanting less visible muscle, which I know sounds really weird. And from an aesthetic point of view.
Isn't it weird, just, when you say that, makes me think, isn't it weird or wonderful how people's aesthetic taste, our idea of what constitutes beauty, masculine or feminine beauty, has changed so much over, times and places. Like in some cultures, people who are very fat are considered more beautiful, and in other cultures, people who are rake thin are considered more beautiful. In sometimes in history, tans have been in, tans have been out.
Yeah.
There's fat. It's so much of it is societal and fashion.
Oh, totally. And I mean, I think we spoke about this in the body shaming episode. I mean, I was highly influenced by the aesthetics of the 90s, and the 90s was your Kate Moss and, the heroin chic. It was skinny as. There wasn't any, that was the thing that you kind of like wanted to emulate. Now in my mid-40s, my main focus is not the aesthetic. It's, am I feeling healthy and strong and fit? So that's really the focus. And I see that more clearly the more I age and the more those around me age and the more I work with clients, who are older. And that's really the ultimate goal. It's very little to do with what you look like, but very much to do with your health and how you feel. Yeah. So I'm constantly striving to get stronger and fitter. I wouldn't
be surprised. I can't recall the research on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if people's reasons for doing Pilates change, on average, that people probably start for reasons like pain or aesthetics, and then they continue for more reasons like health, well-being, social engagement, mental health.
I hear a lot, mobility. Yeah. I hear a lot of that, People start to realise that Pilates is amazing for moving your body through range, feeling that sense of suppleness in your spine, for want of a better word, and in your body. And, oh, hello, Joseph Pilates.
You know what, TBH, that's what I enjoy most about Pilates. Like, I've got a reformer in my basement.
That's, to be honest, it did actually take me a minute to get that. Did you see the haze come over my eyes for a minute, Raph? I was trying to get.
I need like a little emoji thing that goes when I can say a word like that. Or
I glazed over for a moment. TBH. Oh, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to be honest.
You do it for mobility.
Well, that's what I enjoy about it. Like, I find, I've got a reformer in my basement and I'm on it like 5 days a week. I was on it this morning.
Are you? What do you do on it?
Mainly range of motion stuff.
E.g., give us some.
Like front splits, side splits, of course, legs in straps, mermaids.
Bit of short spine.
No. Oh, well, every now and then I do short spine. I did short spine this week.
Oh, short spine's my favourite.
Yeah, I mean, people have told me like so many times over the years, like, oh, short spine is such a delicious stretch. It's such a beautiful massage. I never really felt that in it.
Oh, boy. I know.
Maybe I haven't been doing it right.
Maybe I need to teach you, Raph. I don't know.
I'm waiting for that day where I'm like, oh, this feels delicious. But it's like, yeah.
If I only had time to do one thing on the reformer and I was feeling a little bit achy, a little bit stiff, that sort of thing, and I wanted to be in a good mood, short spines. Short spines my go-to.
Front splits is my go-to.
See, I'm not the biggest fan of front splits. Isn't that funny? Look at that. Yeah. We're all unique.
Yeah.
Right. But we're both actually going to things that give us a sense of feeling like mobility and well-being and suppleness.
Suppleness is the thing for me.
Yeah. Like the first thing I'm not getting on my reformer to do, I love doing scooters and heavy lunges, etc. But if I'm short on time, that's actually not what I'm doing. I'm doing some sort of mobility work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll spend like half hour, 40 minutes just doing stretchy things on the reformer. Yeah. Yeah, probably.
I didn't know you were utilising your reformer that much.
Yeah. There's no dust on it.
Does Jules get on it too?
I don't think so. She does Pilates, but she does more sort of body weight stuff at the start as basically the warm-up for her weights workout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it as a warm-up too before I do kettlebells. Yeah. Oh, there you go. I had no idea you were using your reformer so much. That's really lovely. There you go. Okay.
So anyway, what the heck were we talking about?
Longer, leaner muscles.
Longer, leaner muscles, yeah. So, so I guess, for me, when I first heard that marketing and for years I thought, okay, yes, it's because Pilates is, uses lighter resistance and body weight and springs and moves you through a full range of motion. Therefore, your muscles are longer and leaner and doesn't, make you sort of really have big muscles or short muscles. Big and short muscles are like the opposite of what Pilates gives you, sort of thing. And it turns out that, that is in fact correct, but the reason is not really this, quite correct. So there was a recent systematic review called, what's it called? Effects of range of motion on muscle development during resistance training interventions, a systematic review by Brad Schoenfeld and Jozo Grujic from 2020.
Ooh, nice and new.
And so basically, and there are a bunch of studies on this, that basically when you exercise and strength train, resistance training, that's what Pilates is. When you apply load to a muscle through full range or at long muscle lengths, we'll talk about what the difference is between that in a minute, you actually elicit different physiological responses in the muscle than when you train at short muscle lengths. So if you train at short muscle lengths, right, through limited range of motion, you end up increasing muscle mass by adding more, they're called sarcomeres. It's basically a little bundle of contractile proteins, right, in parallels, right? So you put another one next to the one that you already have, right? So you've got a sarcomere, you build another one next to it, you build another one next to that. Now you've got three next to each other, so it's fatter, it's wider, right? Your muscle gets wider, right? And then if you look at someone who does that a lot, 10 years later, they look like Ronnie Coleman or an elite bodybuilder, like they've got wide muscles, they have to turn sideways to get through doors, right? That's an extreme example.
Yeah.
Right? But
and other things would come into play like that, in that, like
taking
genetics
and
human growth hormone
and all of that stuff. Yeah.
I love that you've gone straight to steroids.
Well, I'm just thinking, if you want to be an elite bodybuilder, but then if you work a muscle, as in strength trainer muscle, through full range of motion / at long muscle lengths, okay, you end up increasing, you put on more contractile proteins, right? The actin and the myosin. I'm pretty sure we've talked about that. Yeah, the little caterpillars that pull each other along each other.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've talked about that in a previous episode, right?
We have. And if you've never seen it visually, I'm sure if you type into Google actin and myosin,
I'll put a link in the show notes to a little video.
It's so great to watch. It literally looks like this cool little caterpillar type creature creeping along. Super, super interesting.
I'm just making a note. All right. When you strength train a muscle, you get stronger. A big part of how you get stronger is you create extra contractile proteins. Actually build more muscle, right? Because if you want the muscle to be stronger, you need more muscle. Like you can't just make the same amount of muscle be twice as strong somehow. Although, asterisk, there are other mechanisms besides just how many muscle fibers you have.
And muscle memory, mate, is that?
Muscle memory is a different thing.
Okay.
So when in the, I would say, like, I always understood it to be this, and my belief is probably like 99% of people understand, when you say muscle memory, what you mean is like a memory of a skill, how to do a skill. Like I used to be really good at this thing. I haven't practiced it for ages. Now I do it again. I'm like, I haven't done this for 10 years. I wonder if I can still do it. And you're like, I can still do it. I can still do a handstand push-up, or I can still, deadlift that amount of weight, or I can still do a lunge on 0 springs. I haven't tried it for so many years. And you're like, I can still do it. Is that what you mean by muscle memory?
No.
What do you mean by it?
No. So what I mean by muscle memory is the fact that if you have laid down those sarcomeres.
Yeah.
At some stage in your life, and then you've had a period of not using them, not loading them, etc., you can actually build back up to where you were faster due to muscle memory.
Bam. That's the scientific definition of muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the correct definition of muscle memory.
Yeah. And I anecdotally noticed that in myself because I was, I think I've said this on another episode, I was extremely active as a teenager, like extremely, was obsessed with the gym, would go and do leg press, everything. Like I was a gym junkie. It was my thing. There's not a lot else to do in Barrel growing up as a teenager. So I like to go and exercise. And yes, I've noticed for me, when I actually put my mind and time to it and body to it, I can actually get muscle back.
Yeah, much quicker.
Really quite
and research
quickly.
Supports that.
Really
so
quite
if
quickly.
If you've been strong in the past, it's much easier to regain strength than it is to gain it in the first place.
And there's studies done on bone density and building bone density, et cetera, when you are younger, that actually sets you up better later in life in regards to osteoporosis, et cetera. Yeah.
So muscle memory is a thing, and it's exactly what you say. It's much easier to regain. Basically, your muscles, quote, remember, unquote, being strong in the past. And so if they've been strong at one point, it's much easier to regain that strength. Even if you lose it at one point, you can regain it much quicker. So, if you and I went to the gym and we were both equally strong or not strong, right? But you had, so we're both detrained, right? But I've never trained, and you used to be super strong, but you just kind of let yourself go for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
You will progress much quicker than I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got that muscle memory. And there's some theories that say that, as the muscles get stronger, the myonuclei, so basically the nucleus of the muscle, muscle cells proliferate. And so when your muscle shrinks again, when you stop training, some of those myonuclei don't go away, like you have more of them.
Yeah.
But there's conflicting research about that. There's some research that's found like, no, that doesn't. They haven't found that's the case. So it's kind of an open question. We're not quite sure why that happens.
It's so fascinating though. I find it really inspiring because I don't know, it actually helps me. Then when I go back to the gym, I'm like, it'll come back.
Yeah, it does come back.
Yeah.
So muscle memory is a thing that's well established. It is a thing. Just like why it's a thing, how it happens. Like, is it the myonuclei?
Right.
Is it something else?
We're not totally sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So heading back then to longer, leaner muscles.
Yeah, longer, leaner muscles.
From Pilates.
So when you get stronger, right, there, and I think we've talked about this as well. There are a bunch of, I think this was in the Heavyweights Bulk You Up Like Elephant episode. Basically, there are about half a dozen, major factors or things that happen inside your body when you train, that result in you getting stronger, right? And one of them, and probably the most important one, over time, is getting bigger muscles, right? I mean, if you get any two people in the world, the one with the bigger muscles is very much likely to be stronger, right? Like that's, most people would, know that intuitively, but it's not always the case. So, there are other factors, and I don't want to go into those today because that was a different episode, but, let's just say 8 times out of 10, bigger muscles equals stronger, right? And so, you strength train, whether that's with springs or body weight or weights or whatever, it's like you get bigger muscles. Now, bigger muscles doesn't mean you blow up like a freaking sack full of walnuts. It could mean that your muscle goes from tiny to small, or it goes from small to moderate sized, bigger than it was, not bigger than the universe necessarily, right? So maybe big is not the word, but it's like hypertrophy is actually the technical term.
Yeah.
Muscles grow.
And it's really hard to do it.
Yes, it's really hard.
Like it's not just going to happen because you put all your springs on for your footwork today.
No, you have to wake up at 2 a.m. and have your protein shake and,
bodybuilders work really, really
it's not
really
easy.
hard. Yeah.
If it was easy, then you could just go to the gym a couple of times, or in fact, just go to Pilates class, put some springs on and do footwork, and then bam, you win a bodybuilding championship.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to happen. So anyway, we digress. So basically, when you do resistance training, of which Pilates is one form, one of the things that happens, and probably the most important reason that you get stronger, is because your muscles get bigger. And the way they get bigger is they create more contractile protein. So muscles are made of these little proteins, which are tiny little microscopic things. We can't see them with the naked eye. They're very small, like long filaments that basically actin and myosin that, pull each other along each other. And I don't want to go into the mechanism of that because we talked about it in the Weights Bulk You Up Like an Elephant episode. But basically, if each actin and myosin produces, X number of, grams of force, well, if you have more actin and myosin, you produce more grams of force, right? So that's the primary way your body gets stronger is it produces more actin and myosin. And when you produce more actin and myosin, you've got to put it somewhere, right? Like you can put it next to the other actin and myosin, right, is a good place to put it. And that makes your muscle wider,
right?
So your bicep gets wider,
yeah.
Sticks up more when you flex it, right? The other place you can put it is at the end, end to end with the other actin and myosin. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So your muscle doesn't get wider, it gets longer. And when you train, at short muscle lengths, you tend to get more actin and myosin next to your existing actin and myosin. Like it's called in parallel. Okay. So your muscles get wider, right? And when you train at long muscle lengths, you tend to get more actin and myosin in series. In other words, at end to end. So your muscles get longer.
Wow. Okay. Can you give an example of both of those on the reformer, for instance?
So for the hamstring muscles, something like shoulder bridge, okay, where you're on, let's say, 1.5 to 2 full springs. You're lying on the carriage, heels are on, or toes, doesn't matter, are on the bar, bars in the normal up sort of footwork position, and you lift your hips up and, then you lift one leg up and push the carriage in and out.
Yeah, I've just started cramping.
Yep. And your hamstrings are cramping because so the hamstrings flex the knee and extend the hip. Right. So that if you think about the hamstring, bends the knee so your heel comes towards your bum.
Yep.
Okay. Extends the hip so the knee goes back behind you.
Yes.
Right. And so in shoulder bridge, when the carriage is in, okay, both of those things are happening. Right, your knee is flexing and your hip is extending.
Gotcha.
Right, so the hamstring is in its close to its maximally shortened position.
Right.
So and that is the hardest part of that exercise, right?
Yes.
Where the least spring tension is supporting you, right?
Yeah.
So as you push away, the hamstring gets longer and the spring tension increases, making the actual exercise easier.
Right.
So that is an example of an exercise that is loading the hamstrings through a short range of motion. Okay. Whereas something like, let's say, front splits, where you are standing with one foot on the foot bar, facing the foot bar, and one foot is behind you on the headrest, and with the headrest up a little bit. Most people do it on the shoulder pads. I actually prefer it with your foot on the shoulder pads.
I prefer the OG JP way, which is more the boxer stance. So the back foot is actually quite wide and turned out. So and the front toes are on the bar.
I like it foot on the shoulder pad because I get more of a stretch.
More of a stretch,
my rear hip, A
little bit more of the classical interpretation of it.
It's just because it's feels more stretchy for me. And so when think about the front leg in front splits, right? You are, when you're pushing out, and I'm talking about doing front splits on a low spring, like a 1 spring sort of thing, 1.5 spring, depending on your body weight, obviously. As you push out, your hip is flexed and your knee is extended.
Yes.
Right? Which is the opposite of the action of the hamstring. So in other words, you're bringing the hamstring to its longest length over both joints, right?
Yep.
So the hamstring, the front leg in front splits, is loaded at a long muscle length, right? And if you've done front splits, which I know you have, Chloe, when you push out and that front leg is straight, that's when your hamstring is going, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas in the shoulder bridge, it's actually when your knee is bent, that's when your hamstring is going, oh yeah.
Yeah. So I actually was thinking about that. My ooh yeah is more for Russian splits. Like I'm thinking Russian splits too when you're facing to the back of the carriage.
Yeah.
Because I feel like then I'm not just concentrating on balance, because for me a lot, doing the front splits or the back splits Russian splits where your hands are behind your head. To me, I'm just it's all about balance. Whereas with and I know, depending on what school you come from, etc., you might call it something different, but Russian splits too, when you're facing to the back, one foot's up the headrest, the other foot's to the corner of the foot bar, hands are on shoulder pads, legs straight, pike up, push out. It's the only time in the Pilates repertoire where I feel like I'm kind of this flexible person, because for the most of the time I just feel like I'm a human plank. And it feels like a hell of a stretch for me.
And especially if you do it on a lightish spring, right?
Yeah.
So if you do it on a heavier spring, obviously it's working the quads more.
Right.
Because you've got to push the carriage out.
Yeah.
But if you do it on a lightish spring, whatever that is for you, one spring, 1.5 if you're heavy, if you're heavier in your body weight, half a spring if you're lighter in your body weight. It's working the hamstring of your front leg, the leg that's on the headrest, at a long muscle length. Right. So it's a strength exercise at a long muscle length, right? Compared to, say, your shoulder bridge, or another one that's at a short muscle length is, say, hamstring curls, like the precursor to breaststroke. Is it breaststroke? Can't even remember it anyway.
To rocking.
To rocking, that's the one. I knew I had it wrong, but So you're lying on the long box facing the foot bar. You've got a couple of springs on and the straps are on your feet, and you curl your legs to your bum, right?
And everyone's having a little giggle right now, because anyone who's ever tried to get into that position knows what a nightmare it is.
It's like,
try cueing an entire group into that. And everyone keeping the straps on their feet.
Yeah, no, it's so difficult to teach us in a group class, because one, it's really hard to get people in the position, and two, as soon as they get there, eventually, like someone the strap drops off their foot.
And then someone else has already done 50 reps. They're like, is this over yet? And the person over this end hasn't even got the strap on their foot yet. Yeah, they're still figuring out which strap do I put on which foot. Yeah. And they end up facing backwards the wrong way. Nightmare. All that time I set up very early on in my career, and I set literally a full class, it's like 15 reformers. I set them all up facing the wrong way.
And there's also...
and I didn't realise until one very kind a client went, Chloe, I don't think it's going to work facing this way. And I went, and everyone was like, looking, and I went, oh, shit. Yeah, guys, I've stuffed up. We're going the wrong way.
But, that's the way to handle it.
No one died.
That's
fine.
the way to handle it.
Oh, yeah, own it. And thank goodness for that client going, Chloe, this is not going to work. Yeah. We're trying for you, though. We're really trying.
Yeah. I'm trying to make it work.
Really want it to work for you. We're really supporting you in this, but we think you've got it wrong.
Yeah.
My little face went quite red, I think.
But, we've all had moments like that.
So back to the hamstring curls. So we're laying on the box. Yeah, the feet are in the small loops. You kind of hold on to the edge of the box and you curl the strap in towards your bum.
So that's a hamstring strength exercise.
Yes.
With your hip extended.
Yes.
And your knee flexed.
Yes.
Right. So in other words, it's at a short muscle length for the hamstring.
It's one of those exercises where almost everyone cramps pretty quickly and then loves it because they're like, oh yeah, this is really working. And then you get the DOMs the next day.
Right. Which isn't a good indicator that it was effective.
No, and by the way, shout out to Adam McAtee for giving me the most hectic glute DOMs I've had in a long time. I did his masterclass the other 2 days ago, so these DOMs are lingering a little longer than they should.
Nice work, Adam.
It was his reformer cardio. He got me good. So thanks, Adam. Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
So anyway, it turns out that when you do work at short muscle lengths, like say shoulder bridge or hamstring curls, you increase strength more by creating extra sarcomeres in parallel. In other words, you put those new muscle fibers next door to the existing muscle fibers, right? Whereas when you do strength training at long muscle lengths, like say front splits or Russian splits, on a light spring, you end up gaining strength by building more sarcomeres in series, or in other words, putting the new muscle fiber, the new contractile proteins, end to end with the existing ones.
This is blowing my mind, Raph. This is really challenging my bias, like in a big way. Yeah. So we know that baby Chloe, when she didn't know much of anything but knew that she liked Pilates, thought that everything was going to make her longer and leaner. And then skeptical Chloe was like, oh, that's a load of bullshit and that's just false advertising and we're perpetuating this, you know, body aesthetic and this body myth and that, you know, Pilates is all about long and lean and the classic, the strengthening while lengthening. And I was like, what a load of bullshit. Stop advertising this. And now you're kind of coming at me with, it kind of is strengthening and lengthening if you do those specific exercises that would lay the extra sarcomere at the end,
so
as opposed to next to each other.
If your Pilates routine consists of shoulder bridge and hamstring curls on the long box, no, it's not going to make you longer and leaner.
Right, that's going to potentially increase muscle mass. Muscle size.
They're both going to increase muscle mass.
Sorry, muscle.
But the one is going to the short length is going to increase diameter,
right?
Whereas the long length is going to increase length.
But is there? I mean, okay. Where does that length go? Like, because you don't get technically taller. I know this is sounding like a bit of a dumb thing, but I'm trying to like concept. Because
great question.
Because if we think about the other way, does actually make you, for want of a better word, wider, makes your muscles wider. Okay, but you can get wider. That makes sense.
Yeah, but for you to get taller, your bones would need to lengthen, right? Your femurs would need to get longer. Your vertebrae would need to get taller.
I'd need to be put on one of those like medieval like stretching machines, you know those ones, and you see that, or like where they used to like they'd break a bone and reset it longer.
Maybe that's your new. That's the new fitness craze we could start. A medieval stretching machine, but we have to rebrand it, obviously. But.
Oh my God, it sounds horrible.
Longer and leaner. Guaranteed. Or your money back.
I'm just imagining the marketing material now as well.
And when you're on your first class, there'll be a very long waiver. And we say like, this might hurt a bit.
Cause irreparable damage. I would like you to sign off here, please, on the dotted line. Okay, talk me through like what's happening? Where is it going?
Well, so it's not going to make you taller.
No.
Right? So longer in this case specifically refers...
I'd love to be taller. I've always wanted to be taller. Apart from my dad and my mum aren't that tall, but my siblings are like giants in the best possible way.
I don't think I've ever met any of your siblings. I've seen you with them on
they're
social
all
media
like Viking kind of warrior looking. Yeah. And the boys are so tall and my sister towers above me.
But
what happened to me?
But you got the brains.
God. Oh gosh. Oh, they're going to love that one. No, everyone's very smart. They would not agree with that at all.
I don't know them from a bar of soap, obviously.
My sisters, they're all very wise. Who knows? I really got the short straw and am the eldest. I was the first and the shorty. Interesting. So I've always wanted to be tall like my siblings. So what's happening? So we can't get my bones longer, but we can get my muscles longer. What's the point?
Well,
where's it going?
If you have longer, all right. So if you have longer muscles, does that make you taller? No, because in order to be taller, you would need longer femurs or longer tibias or taller vertebrae, right? And that's not what we're achieving.
No,
by giving you longer muscles. That's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
So it's not going to make you taller. And maybe when people think longer, leaner, that's what they think is like, oh, I'll be taller and narrower.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're promising on the packet here. It's longer, leaner muscles. And so a longer hamstring lets you do what? Doesn't let you be taller, but it lets you stretch further because your muscle is longer, right? So you can go deeper into your front splits, for example.
So it increases my flexibility.
Increases your flexibility. Increases your strength at long muscle lengths. And literally is less wide because it's the increased bulk of the muscle, because you put on extra muscle fiber, not muscle fibers, you put on extra contractile proteins in your muscle, but you put them on end to end, so the muscle is literally longer, so it is more massive. You have more muscle than you did before, okay, but that mass is added length not added width.
Okay. So again, bias is being challenged here for me. In regards to my understanding of stretching, have we done an episode on stretching? I feel we must have.
Stretching the truth.
Oh, we did. Gosh, that feels like, does that not feel like a long time ago now?
Yeah.
In that, didn't we talk about that stretching and an increase in flexibility seems to be more to do with the nervous system, and basically your body sees it as less threat.
Yes.
Right. Is this new information?
I would say, it's probably a slight modifier of what we talked about in the stretching episode. So like if you do, say, front splits, and you keep doing it for years and you gradually go lower and lower and lower, your muscle's not going to get longer and longer and longer until after you've been doing it for 10 years, your muscle's like 5 feet long, It's so there's some, finite amount of additional length that you're going to get.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and beyond that, so.
Kind of imagining us all turning into Gumby or something, we can just or go gadget arm.
Right. So, when you do strength training at, like front splits at long muscle lengths, okay, there's some degree of increased muscle mass that comes from sarcomeres in series, okay, and then you continue to do it and you continue to gain flexibility, but your muscles don't keep getting longer and longer and longer and longer over time. Just like if you did shoulder bridge, right, and you did it, on a light spring and you did it 3 times a week and you did it, for years, okay, well, initially your hamstrings would get a little bit bigger, maybe noticeably, maybe not, but they would get a little bit more, wider in diameter, but they're not going to keep getting wider and wider and wider and wider and wider until after 5 years of doing shoulder bridge, hamstrings don't fit through the doorway anymore.
Yeah.
Like they grow a little bit and then they plateau, right? That's normal, right? And it's the same with when you increase the length of a muscle, increases a little bit in length and then it stays the same.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And any further increases in flexibility, come from, probably neurological changes.
Right.
Increased tolerance to stretch, basically. Yeah.
Ah, wow. Okay. So what did they find in this? That's basically what they find in the, can we talk about the study a little more? Like who, what did they do?
So, all right, so I've got a couple of studies here. So here's one from last year.
Is this one you mentioned before, the 2020?
Let me have a look. All right, so partial range of motion training elicits favourable improvements in muscle adaptations when carried out at long muscle lengths by Pedrosa et al. From, when is this? 2021.
2021?
Yeah. Oh. And I'll link to all of these in the show notes. But basically what they did, and this is where I mentioned at the start about the difference between full range of motion versus working at long muscle lengths. It's not always the same thing. Right. So, for example, if you did, again, let's think of back splits. Russian splits. Yeah. Right. So you're doing Russian splits. You're going from your knee bent at 90 degrees, right, to your knee straight.
Yes.
That's the range of motion, right? But even when your knee is bent at 90 degrees, your hip is flexed at about, ideally 90 degrees.
Correct.
Right. So the shortest that muscle ever gets is the knees bent halfway and the hip is virtually fully flexed.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not a short muscle length. Right.
No.
So let's again think about it. Like through a full range of motion for the hamstring would be the shortest range would be your heel literally touching your butt. Right. That is the shortest position for the hamstring. And the longest range would be your leg in front of you and you bending forwards, so that your chest is on your knee, right, or your nose is on your knee, right? That is the longest length of the hamstring, right? So a full range exercise for the hamstring would move between those two endpoints, right? It'd be heel on butt to maximum stretch of the hamstring, right? That would be a full range exercise.
Yeah.
And there are very few exercises that I can think of. I can't think of any exercise in Pilates that goes through that full range for the hamstring. Like, and there are some exercises where you put your feet on the butt, like, like double leg kick and the one leg kick and stuff, but you don't go through a lengthened position for the hamstring in those exercises.
No.
Right? And there are some exercises where you go, or plenty of exercises where you lengthen your hamstrings, like.
I wonder if potentially the barrel.
Oh, yeah, like the back arch and bridge.
Yeah, I'm thinking the back, or
shoulder.
Grasshopper.
Yeah, or shoulder bridge shoulder bridge even, because it's not really totally full range. Yeah, grasshopper. No, but you don't flex the hip in grasshopper.
But if I was doing grasshopper here on the barrel, would I not be over the barrel, hands down?
So you're shortening your hamstrings, heels to butt, but then you don't lengthen your hamstrings nose to knees.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, darn it. So basically, it's pretty rare. And so a full range of motion exercise would go right from one end point to the other, right? Whereas actually when we say full range of motion, what we mostly mean is partial range of motion at long muscle lengths, right?
Yeah.
Like your Russian splits, right? Where you're going from end range to not quite end range and then back to end range again, right? You never get your heel onto your butt in Russian splits. Never gets anywhere near it. Your leg's always way out in front of your body, right? So it's a partial range of motion at a long muscle length. It's not a full range of motion. And what the research shows in this study, for instance, the one that I just mentioned, is that it's not the range of motion that matters, right? So if you do a full range, in this study, they looked at, they did some people who did a full range of motion and some people that did a partial range of motion at a short muscle length, and some other people that did a partial range of motion at long muscle length.
Yeah.
And what they found was actually the long muscle length people got the best results. The partial range at long lengths got the best result. Full range got the second best result, and the short range got the let's say the third winner result, the third best result. Anyhow, and the difference isn't massive, right, in terms of how much extra strength they got, but there is a benefit to training at long muscle lengths. You don't have to go through full range of motion. It's just the end range part that's important, right? Yeah. And there are there are a couple of other studies here that finds that, what I just mentioned before, that basically when you train at long muscle lengths, you actually increase the sarcomeres in series, and where you put on the additional sarcomeres in the muscle, which part of the muscle they go to, is different depending on the range of motion that you're working for the muscle. And so this systematic review from last year, from 2020, from Schoenfeld and Grujic, it's a hard name to say, Grujic, because there are 5 letters and only one of them is a vowel. It's GRGIC.
Oh, that is hard.
Yeah. So I apologise if I've mispronounced
that is challenging, yes.
But anyway, so they systematically reviewed studies on range of motion versus, and its effect on muscle development. And what they found was for lower body exercises, exercising at long muscle lengths, whether it was full range of motion or partial range of motion, was more effective than exercising at short muscle lengths. But for upper body, there was conflicting results. It's not 100% clear whether it's true or not.
Wow.
Yeah. And no one studied it in the spine, so we don't really know about the spine. But, there's a plausible physiological mechanism of why it is, that way. And so, my guess is it probably is that way in the upper body and the spine, but we don't know. More research is required.
Funny that almost every paper ends with more research is required.
Yeah. So Pilates can give you longer, leaner muscles.
Wow.
Fuck a duck, hey?
Wow. That was the quotable quote. Wow. Okay. I'm in shock. I'm assuming, as are some of our listeners, because I know that a lot of our listeners, this is probably challenging their bias
Yeah.
as well. I think there'll be a group of listeners going, yeah, I could have told you that.
Yeah.
And then there'll be a group of listeners going, what? What do you mean? What? And like I'm here going, oh, I can't really say shit about that advertising now, can I? I mean, because now if you do advertise your business and say longer, leaner muscles, strengthening and lengthening.
All true.
It's legit true.
Yeah.
Kat's gonna love this because that's a pet peeve of Kat's is that narrative for advertising as well.
Will it change your genetics? No. Will it make you taller? No.
So I'm still not going to end up. I'm not going to catch up to my siblings. I've been trying.
Will it change where your body fat is distributed on your frame? No, that's genetic.
Yeah.
Right. But it literally will make your muscles longer and leaner.
I tell you what, I know what I'm adding in a little extra now into my regime, which I honestly have for so many years thought was bullshit. This has been a total eye opener for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's all I got to say about that. You've blown my mind, Raph. I'm kind of glad you didn't give me, for our listeners, Raph didn't give me any heads up on what was going to happen in this discussion, and I had a feeling he had something to reveal because he wanted to talk about it. I'm like, have we not covered this already? He's like, no, I don't think we have. So I'm like, okay, But yeah, this is really wow. There you go.
Hey, just before we finish, can I just give a shout out to a listener?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to shout out to Tori Fromke, and I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name, Tori. From Bayside Pilates in Corpus Christi, Texas, who I had the pleasure of chatting with this week.
You've talked.
Yeah. So Tori's awesome. And I had quite a few light bulb moments about Pilates and stuff, which I won't go into now because we're at the end of the episode. But something that I do want to share is Tori was telling me about, down at the beach and this and that, I'm windsurfing or whatever. And I'm like, you're in Texas, like bleached cattle skulls in the desert.
Yeah,
No, apparently Texas has beaches. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that
So
either.
there you go.
Texas has beaches?
Yes. Corpus Christi is one of them, apparently.
Wow. Well, I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to listen to that episode.
No, that wasn't a Pilates Elephants episode. That was we just had a chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say a shout out to Tori, and if you're listening, thanks for the chat. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome.
And thanks to you, Chloe, for this chat, because this has been fun too.
This is so cool. I love it, Raph, when we have episodes and I learn something new from them that surprises me. This is really cool. So
Me too. And like a lot of this stuff, like this isn't just like one from the vault that's like I know everything and then I just wheel some stuff out every day. It's like I just learned this, fairly recently.
He's been holding out on this little nugget for a while. No.
Yeah, I mean, I subscribe to research reviews. I read a lot of papers, and I come across stuff that I didn't know all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is one thing that I came across, and I wanted to share it.
What are some of your favourite research reviews to subscribe to? Because I actually did have a student ask me that question last night, which I thought was a great question.
So, research reviews are basically it's sort of like, ordering, pre-cooked meals instead of going to the supermarket and buying the ingredients, right? It's like someone's done all the hard work for you.
Yeah, awesome.
And so research reviews are basically, people, academically literate people who have sifted through the new studies that have come out in the last month, and they basically read the study, do a summary of it, interpret it, tell you what they think it means and what you should take away from it and why you should care, and what you should do different in the clinic or the studio tomorrow, as a result of this new information. And so I subscribe to 3 or 4 of those. Probably the couple that I'd recommend to the listeners of Pilates Elephants are Physio Network.
Awesome. I thought you might say that one.
Yeah, so I love Physio Network. Every month, first of the month, I get 12 new papers, and they're like, okay. And it's generally to do with rehabilitation and pain science and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's different stuff to do with, running biomechanics and low back pain and shoulder pain and whatever. And then I also subscribe to one called MASS, which is Monthly Applications in Strength Sports. And that's, really around sort of mostly powerlifting. But that's actually where I found this systematic review on range of motion and, muscle strength. And so it's not just about, how to use a barbell. It's about the principles of training. And so that's one. And the third one I really like is called Strength and Conditioning Research Review. And that's by a guy, a UK academic called Chris Beardsley.
Oh, yeah.
And so he does a lot of stuff on strength and he does a lot of stuff on athletic development. So he's really about sort of sport.
I've been learning from him just by following him on Instagram.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Because he puts up a lot of the reviews on there.
Yeah,
so.
he puts up infographics of them on Instagram. But when you read his monthly review, he gives you literally a 10-page super deep dive into, this, what this study found and the context in the broader literature of the other studies that have looked at this topic as well.
Yeah, right.
He's freaking encyclopedic.
He seems that way. Yeah, just from interactions I see with him on Instagram, he seems that way.
Yeah, he's got a great book called Strength is Specific. If you want to learn the mechanism, the physiology of how people get stronger and what happens when you train and get stronger, it's on Kindle, it's literally $3. It's can't believe how cheap it is. It's ridiculously cheap.
Should he value his work more?
He should charge literally 100 times more than that.
Yes.
Yeah. Chris, if you're listening,
outrageous.
put your prices up, dude.
Yeah, because we'd pay for it. Yeah, that's crazy.
But Strength is Specific, fantastic, very, very readable and highly, scientifically accurate description of what happens when you get stronger. Yeah, he's I like his writing style. I find it very easy to digest.
Yeah, fantastic. I've been thinking about subscribing to Physio Network because I get their little notifications in all my feeds and the taster of what the papers are, and I'm like, oh, that sounds really exciting. I'm going to give a shout out to where I learn a lot from to keep up to date to the Better Clinician Project, which is run by Ben Cormack and Adam Meekins. So it's not very expensive at all. It's like a monthly subscription and then you're in a Facebook group with them as well. And they're quite prolific in what they put out and they have research, I think it's Research Friday or something where they discuss a paper and they jump on live and discuss it and it's really interactive and real time and they're both just hilarious. So they're very, if you want a bit of spice with your research and banter and fun, what I love about it really appeals to me, those two bring that. So for me, in how I enjoy learning, I learn really well from them because they're fun and they're bringing the research and being part of that group's really cool too because people ask questions of the group and you can learn from it and you can also add something in. Someone asked about core stabilization. She said she used to be a Pilates instructor and she's just been so turned off by it all and is it really a thing? And I was able to link in our What the Fuck is Core Stability episode to which a whole heap jumped in and said, Chloe, we've been using your Pilates Elephants episodes as references and sending them on to different people. And
awesome.
Thank you. And it actually really answered her question. And Ben popped a great. He did this fantastic blog a few years back on core stability as well. So that was really cool to be able to be part of it. And they're anyone from physios to exercise phys to Pilates instructors to personal trainers are all in that too. So I find that really valuable. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully that was helpful. I think it's a great thing because I've noticed more and more students and grads kind of saying, what are some tips for keeping up to date? What are some tips for keeping your finger on the pulse? Do I have to do a whole new course? No. If you want to, come and do our diploma because that's freaking awesome and it's a deep dive into all the things and we'll really empower you how to look up research yourself and how to know what is good quality and what isn't, etc. But there's so many ways to really keep your finger on the pulse nowadays.
You could come and do free weekly Q&A with me every week.
Yeah, your Q&A and pick your brain.
Yeah, it's every Wednesday Australia time or Tuesday evenings in the US.
Yep.
And today we we're recording this on a Wednesday. I did just before recording this. Today was on biomechanics of the squat and how far should you lean forward when you squat, and does it matter?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't bring it. Scott University's copying a bit of slack at the moment. It's kind of public enemy 101 on the socials, on Twitter and etc. He's coughing some crap.
Yeah, I'm laughing at that.
Oh, well, good chat, Raph.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah,
Yay.
likewise.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Oh, hey, and by the way, our reviews are kind of like, they've kind of petered off.
Give us a review.
They've kind
of
like,
What is this?
They've sat it. There's been 91 reviews there for the last year.
You know what? I've talked to quite a few people lately and they've said, like, I'm trying to give you a review on Spotify and I can't figure out how to.
So I don't think you can on Spotify.
I'm going to give you a little tutorial on how to do it, right?
Okay.
You can't do it on Spotify.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is you go to, if you've got an iPhone, you go to your iPhone to your podcasts app, right, on your iPhone, and you download our podcast on your podcast app on your iPhone, and you open up any old episode and you tap on, there's a button, there's like a star symbol there. It says write a review, tap on that, bam, there, that's where you write it.
Yeah.
Or if you're not on an Apple device, you can still do it on your laptop. Go to Google, type in Apple Podcasts.
There you go.
Right? You can listen to it online.
Yeah.
It just, once you get to the Apple Podcasts app online, just navigate to type in Pilates Elephants, right? Bada bing, bada boom, you can write a review.
Yeah.
So that would really, really help us if you could give us a 5-star review, because that's what helps. That's what tells the podcast app to push us up in the rankings, which helps other people find us. And so that's something you could do for us.
Yeah.
You know, don't send us money, right? But
we're probably not allowed to accept it. I don't know. We don't work for the government. We could accept.
Yeah, Sam Harris accepts it, no problems.
Right.
But
cool.
we're not asking you for money. But please do give us a 5-star review and write a review. Don't just hit the 5-star thing and be lazy. Like, write us an actual review. Tell us what's awesome about this. Tell everyone else what's awesome about it.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Raph.
Thanks, Chloe. See ya.